Welcome to the InStory show. I'm Devorah Spilman, your host, and today I am thrilled to welcome Lisa Salvatore. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful. So Lisa is an intuitive advisor, a spiritual health and wellness coach, and her specialization is astrology for the soul. And we're going to get more into what that is. So Lisa, maybe start us out and tell us a little bit more about what you do now in the world. And then how did you get here? Because I have a hunch, like most of us, this probably isn't what you always did.
You are right with your hunch. It's not what I always did, but it is always who I was, if that makes sense, which I feel like could resonate with a lot of people. We know who we are. Exactly. It takes certain points in our life to get to where we need to be. From real quick, from a young age, I was always very tuned into energy on a very deep level, and I was very sensitive, and I could feel everything in my body, and it would scare me because I didn't know what to do with it, especially as a child. And as I got older, it got stranger. So I kind of tucked it all away. But I had a closet love of astrology and tarot because I felt like I could read everything. And those were tools to help me. And so anyway, I've always done that. And so what I now do with my clientele is I bring that awareness to them more in a helpful manner. So it's not necessarily predictive, although I do give predictive. It's just, that's not the purpose. It's more humanistic. I work with them on the individual soul level just to kind of help them bring the unconscious to the conscious so that they can shift some things for themselves and see something that maybe they weren't seeing in a different way. And I love doing it.
Yeah, I think that's what the theme of a lot of the people who speak in this series is how much we love what we do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily a piece of cake to get here.
Right.
So part of my goal is to have these interviews inspire those of you watching to wade through that messy phase because it's worth it. So, all right, tell us what you used to do and how did you get to doing this super cool stuff you do now?
Okay, so I was not ever a school person. I always loved English, but that was about it, English and science. And, but I never finished college, and, I just went through my phase, and I got a great job at the age of 22 working for a union. And it was a gift that I got this job because it was through a friend. And I was making a really decent salary at the time for my age without a college degree and had full health insurance. So that's a big deal,
Yeah.
And so at first I'm like, okay, great. This is good. This will set me up. And then I was there for 2 or 3 years, and I'm not even kidding. The feds would come in, and it was crazy, like questioning us, and it would give me tremendous anxiety. And I would come home and cry every day, and literally every day. And my poor husband, who at the time we were not married, we were just together. And I would say, I don't know what to do. I feel sick in my body. Every Sunday would roll around, and I would cry because I didn't want to go to work. And I knew I was meant for more. And I was always doing readings on the side, but I wasn't advertising because I thought people would think I was weird or, woo-woo or whatever else. And I had a clientele, and I was working out of my apartment. And it began to get bigger and bigger. And as that got bigger and bigger, my spirit through my job, my full-time job, became less and less and less. And I was noticing I was having anxiety attacks at work. I was having a difficult time functioning outside of work because I was so miserable, and it wasn't allowing me the energy to show up in my best space for my clients who I loved, my side clients. So trying to get this story not too long. Then I thought that changing jobs would be the answer. So, because I didn't think I could ever do this work full time. So I thought changing jobs would be the answer. So through another friend, I got another government job, and it was okay for a while, but it was, again, very stressful. I was dealing with a lot of people, and my soul just felt like it was shriveling. And I felt like, the best way I could say this, I felt like a monkey in a circus. That's how I felt. It was all this chaos. I wasn't grounded. I wasn't centered. I was miserable. I kept thinking another job would solve this. It's just the job. It's just the people. And then, as it probably did for all of us, the universe stepped in and did its magic because I was so miserable. And then I got another job offer from another municipality, and it was a lot more money. It was like $17,000 more. So it was a decent amount of money more. And it was a smaller scale. It was like basically less work. And I knew intuitively, I kid you not, I said to myself, I know that I should not take this job, but I have to take this job. You know, when you just, I can't explain, it was that intuitive feeling, trusting the gut. And I took the job. It was worse than the last one. My boss was verbally abusive. It was terrible. I should have pressed charges on him. I never did. I just didn't, because it wasn't worth it to me. Long story short, I would come home and cry. Of course, I cry all the time. And I would light a candle and I would beg my husband. I'm like, what am I going to do? And I had the health insurance. So his thing was, can you just stick it out for a little while longer because you have the health insurance? And that's a big deal. We all know how crazy insurance is these days. I tried, and I came home and I would light a candle and I would pray every night. And I would say, and this is important for anybody listening, when you are praying or trying to manifest something, you always want to say lovingly, because you never want it to happen in a way that could be negative towards anyone else. And that's not your intention, because intention is very important. So I would say, please get me out of this job lovingly. And I kid you not, a year to the day of my probation, he called me in his office and laid me off. And I had to pretend I was upset about it. And meantime, inside, I was like having a party, you know, I was like, I just got laid off. I got laid off. And then I went home and I thought about it and I cried. I'm like, what am I going to do? I just got laid off. It was really kind of funny. And then that was when my husband, he was integral in this for me, because he was very supportive, and I'm blessed for that. And he said to me, you know what? Let's build you a website and just start advertising. And that was a huge breakthrough for me, because I was embarrassed. And not to sound silly, but it's not that now it's more accepted, but 10 years ago, it was more, people, 10 years ago, even, it was more like, people thought it was weird, or if you have these gifts, you're weird. And now it's like, what is needed on this planet right now is a different perspective of higher consciousness. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I did it full time and it took off, and I absolutely love it. And it's been amazing. So that's
sort of how you got here. So tell us a little bit about now, a little more about what pulled you in. Like, did you do this? Was it like as a kid, you already had these abilities, right? To a certain extent? Because part of what I see also is that you have it as a kid, then you shut it down, and then you get it back.
Yes. Yes. That's very true. It's very true. There are times still to this day where it's actually easier for me to, it's hard to tune out sometimes. And that's, the more you do this work, because you're in that space a lot. And we're all intuitive beings, all of us. We all have that sixth sense and that great, I call it like your gut butt. That's basically what it is, because we know things on such a deep level, and we search outside of ourselves for answers. And I even tell my clients, you're just coming to me to validate what you already know. It's true though. So yes, I did always know I was very tuned in, and I had to accept it in order for it to really be my life. That's the key. You have to accept it.
Right. Well, what happened when you kind of when you finally put that website out there, right? Because you said you were like embarrassed. I think that's so interesting how so often we don't feel safe in some sense to bring these more authentic, vulnerable gifts out in the world. So if you don't have a husband who's supportive, you go find a community that's supportive, but that support to be brave, I'm curious how that went.
It was a challenge for me. I won't sit here, and sometimes it still is, I have to be honest. I don't like attention. I don't. And that's the way my own astrological chart is configured. I don't. I like getting paid in the shade, quote unquote. I like to be behind the scenes, but I also know that a part of my purpose is to bring these gifts out to the world and be seen. And so knowing that has helped me to embrace it. And I also find that the more vulnerable you are, the more people respond to that, because they want to know you're a human, a real authentic human that connects. And that's what keeps me going, is that I always say, if it's authentically honest and you're being yourself, you cannot fail. And I truly believe that. And so that was what kept going. I had to keep saying mantras and affirmations. I still do it to keep myself in that space and say, you know what? I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Not everyone's going to believe in what I say. But at the end of the day, all we have is our faith, right? And without that, we have nothing. And so that's what keeps me going.
Well, let's talk about strengthening faith. I think that's a great topic. And, and right now we're doing this interview in the midst of a very big energetic shift in our world, because this is the right in the time we're recording. This is when we're learning about the coronavirus, and we're taking actions to be very careful and how do we connect each of us? I like to talk about each person being in their own lane. Like, what's the wisdom we each have to bring? So each of you listening, this is your chance to tune into your own intuition, your own gifts. But I think there's also a place for how do you strengthen your faith. So I'd love to hear a little about your thoughts on that.
Well, my first thing, I said this to you earlier and we laughed about it, is to stick with people that pull the magic out of you and not the madness. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to go down the rabbit hole right now. There's a lot of fear on the planet, paranoia, uncertainty, and uncertainty is what breeds fear, right? Because we just don't know. There's a lot of information out there. I'll be honest, I don't watch the news. I really don't, because it sends me into a place where I don't want to go. And I'm helping people to try to lift them up and keep them in a higher vibration. And if I'm falling into a lower one of fear, I'm not going to be any good for them. So all I can control is myself. So I try to keep up with my immunity as best as possible. Obviously I exercise, but I use common sense and logic. I'm not going to go into a crowded gym class where there's 12 people, breathing all over each other. I'm going to do my part, which is to control my world and try to stay. If I don't have to go out in large crowds right now, I'm not. If I don't have to travel, I'm not. Simple little things like that we can control in our inner world has a ripple effect, because we cannot control what's going on outside. And meditation is extremely important, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes a day, just to quiet your mind and allow yourself to just be. So important.
Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about some of the work you do. Like, what are some of the tools you use? What are some of the processes that you give people in your work? And, a couple of tips that you can give, teach kind of into at the moment to help listeners.
Okay. I would say, familiarize yourself with the energy centers of the body. It's not hard to do. There's 7. I'm also a Reiki practitioner. So we've got the 7 chakras, which are energy centers. And I actually have on my website, it's a free downloadable meditation. It's only 8 minutes and it just takes you through all the chakras, just a quick clearing, just to kind of put you back into your body. Because a lot of times we're like this, we're tense and we don't even realize how tense we are. But when we actually stop and we let go for that 5, 6, 7 minutes, you'd be surprised at just the effect it has on the nervous system. It just really just kind of takes you out of that space of anxiety and brings you back for a minute, which is what we really need to be doing. I'm a big fan of grounding, getting outside, even if it's just for a 10-minute walk. I like to walk barefoot in the grass, honestly, because it really does connect you to the earth. Some people can't do that at this time of year. I do it even in the winter because I feel like it's so necessary. I'm also a Taurus, so I'm an earth sign. So for me, it's like a necessity. I do that. I drink a ton of water because a lot of people don't recognize they're not drinking enough water. And water really does move everything through your body, including the energy. Very important. What else? Sleeping, making sure you're taking care of sleep. Any issues you're having with sleeping, try to address them. See where they're coming from. Don't eat so late at night. Little things like that, they go a long way with overall health, mind, body, soul.
And I think what you're saying also, about going through and quieting the energy chakras, getting that state, it's when you get into that more quiet state, I think that's when you become able to recognize your intuition speaking to you as well, right?
Yes, because your intuition cannot talk to you over doubt and fear. It can't. I actually had a little exercise that I had developed. I'm actually going to put it out on my website, but I can explain it really fast. It's just a quick, simple exercise to help distinguish between intuition, doubt, and fear.
Do you want to lead us? Do you want to lead it or just tell it to us?
Yeah, I'll lead it, but you probably need some time to do it.
Okay.
But what I would suggest is find a quiet space, put aside about a half an hour.
Okay. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Find a quiet space wherever you need to go, and take a notebook and a pen and just sit there and think about something that makes you very happy, an image that makes you very happy, like a child, an animal, something very uplifting and positive. Think of that image, really see it visualize it, and sit with that feeling that it brings up in you. You'll probably smile, you'll probably feel a warmth, it'll bring up something very positive in you. Remember that feeling, okay? Now, this is why I can't guide you in it, because something has to be done. Yeah. Then slowly kind of drift back over into something that makes you anxious, like a scenario that you've thought of that makes you very anxious, like a destructive scenario, an earthquake, a tsunami, things like that, something that gives you high anxiety. Sit with that sensation. It's going to be entirely different than the first sensation, okay? That is your fear. Remember that feeling. And this is something you're going to be sitting with for a solid 5-6 minutes each one, if not longer. For everyone, it's going to be different. But really sit with that. And it might be very uncomfortable, but it's important. This is an important step. That is fear, okay? Because intuition and fear can, a lot of times, it's very hard to distinguish, because you get the impression and then you instantly go to fear, right? Then the last piece, and this is probably the most important piece, is think about something that someone says to you that you actually stop and say, maybe one day, but I don't know. Like, it's more, that's doubt. That's like someone telling you when you're afraid of flying, you know what you need to do? You need to get on an airplane at one of those small airports and take that 20-minute flight. And you know it's a good idea, but you're like, nah, I'm not going to do that, because you're doubtful, because it doesn't make you feel like that's something you really want to do. It doesn't resonate. That's your doubt. So that's just a quick little way. It'll be personal for everybody to sit there with each one of those emotions and really feel the intuition, the doubt, the intuition, the fear, and then the doubt. It's just it's an effective way if it's harder for you to connect, to figure out which is which. Also, with intuition, if you're washing the dishes and you get some random impression that has nothing to do with, like, and this happens to everybody, I need to call my sister. And you don't know why you're thinking that, but you need to call your sister, and you haven't spoken to her in a couple of weeks. And you call your sister, and you find out that exact moment something major happened with her. It's like, we know as humans that we have the energetic connections. It's just that the ego gets in the way.
Yes, I think it's like somehow finding different tips and tools and strategies to get out of that overactive reactive state that's constantly, like I call it the spin cycle, overthinking, overtrying, overdoing, to get quiet. So that's part of, like, I like to call them inner practices, but there's tons of them. And but I also like what you said about being able to notice the difference in how feelings feel. Part of that is how it feels in your body, because a lot of times people are not connected to how it feels in your body. Like, it's in my head, but a lot of people have also been teaching through the series about how when it gets into your body, there's another level of knowing.
Yes.
Because, we're talking about trusting your intuition. So that what I think you're teaching is, how do we distinguish one thing from another?
Exactly. Because it's one of those things, like, say you're out at a party and you meet somebody and you instantly just don't like them, and you don't know why. There's no logical reason, but yet your body's saying to you, I don't feel safe with this person. You have to trust that. I've had situations with friends where I've known right away about someone's character, and I won't say it unless it's important to say it or unless they ask me. And they'll say, how did you know that? And I said, because my body tells me. My body reacts to people, to situations, to stimuli. It's hard, but it's something that once you really sit with it and learn to trust it, we all have that ability inside of us. We do.
Right. And so I would love for you to, let's speak a little bit more into, how do you develop this trust? Like, how do you get better at it?
Oh boy.
Or how did that happen to you? Like, how did you get better at trusting your intuition?
Honestly, it was working with clients, because what would happen would be I would give them a reading, and they would reach out and say, oh my gosh, how did you know that way before it happened? Or you had that sense and you told me and I avoided it, and it made my life different. And I think for me, it was more about trusting them, having the trust in me, and then confirming to me that what I was telling them was accurate. It's harder when it's for yourself, because I still struggle with that. I'm not going to lie. I do still, I have to really sit with things when it's for me. For other people, I've got it covered, but for me,
I know.
But I think that's just the way it is, right?
Right. I mean, I often say, you can't do your thing on yourself.
No, it's true.
Right.
Yes. That's why we need a community of like-minded individuals to help us,
And also what you're saying is, like, that ability to be willing to try it out. Like, I have a whole year program, but it gives people a safe place to, okay, I want to try this out. Yeah. And then you get feedback. Because if you're trying out this other way of knowing, a lot of what happened to people is, when you did it when you were little and you were good at it, you were right, you still got slammed. Yes. And I think it's this rewiring of that response. And I think what you're saying is that confirmation that you get,
Yeah.
right, from other people. So take us through another thing that you think might be helpful for people that they can put into practice, like another one of your favorite tips or tools.
Well, this sounds silly, but learn your own. You got to really learn your own inner workings and honor the stuff inside, even the stuff that's not pretty. Working with the shadow side, it's important. I still do it all the time. There's things that trigger us, and we need to be aware of our triggers. And instead of ignoring them or putting blame elsewhere, we have to actually go inward and say, what about this is bothering me? Why am I reacting this way? If you don't know yourself, you can't help other people. And if you don't trust yourself, you can't trust other people. So it all goes hand in hand. So I think it's important to be honest with yourself, even with the stuff that's not pretty. That's really important.
So, but the question is, what are some of the things you found that's helpful when you go in and you look at that stuff?
So, okay, let me make sure I'm understanding the question.
So you go in and you notice your shadow side, or you notice something triggers you. What are your, I mean, we all have techniques that we use. What happens when you, oh, look at that. What do you do to shift? What are some of your things you recommend and that you do?
I'm a big journaler. I think journaling is very important. And especially because when you do it and then you go back and look at it at the next trigger point, which might be 3 months down the road or a year or whenever it is, it gives you such insight. You're like, whoa, I would have never have connected that if I didn't have it in writing, the way I felt in that moment and how I'm feeling now. And it's also really cool because it shows growth. It shows how much you've grown between each passage. And we are here to be triggered. That's reality, because that's how we grow, right? That's the only way we grow is through triggers. But it's about being open to it as well. That's very important. You know that what they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? That's worked in all of our lives. It's like we're at the next level now. We're ready to help people more. So now we have to face more in order to get to that level to help others.
Right. And I think what happens, what I'm starting to see is, and that's what you said, like about being willing to be more vulnerable. So when you go through a trigger and you come out the other side, one of my passions is that I think we have wisdom that has come from how we've gotten back up. Yes. And being able to tell those stories of how you fell down and how you got back up. I think it both helps the next person, but I think then I don't feel like, oh, all the things that happened to me were for nothing. Like it's not meaningless.
Exactly. And I always like to say that there's a silver lining. Always look for the silver lining. And that's not about always being, peace, love, light, because, there is darkness. We have to face that, obviously. But when something happens, it's important to try and look for the silver lining. Like when I lost my job, I was depressed because it's like an emotional hit, even though it worked out and it was for the best at the time, there's still that element of, oh, but I got laid off. It's kind of like an ego hit. And what ended up happening also through that was that at that time, my sister, who lives in a different state as I do, was having her second child, and she had no help because she lives, at the time, there was no family down there where she was in North Carolina, and she didn't have any help. And it just so happened I lost my job late March, and she was giving birth early August. And so I was able to go down there and take care of my niece couple days a week while she was able to get some work done and get prepared for the second baby. And I was there when she had him, and it was great. And I would have never have been able to do that had I not. And that was a dark time for me because I was by myself down there. She had a lot going on. So I was really forced to go inward on an even deeper level. And I was working with clients. So that was my big silver lining as well. So it's important to always remember the times where you think you're being planted in a dark place. That's when you bloom. That's really when you grow.
Right. It's such an important message for our times right now because we're being asked to do things in such a different way, all together. And so, bringing these elevated tools to the population right now seems even more important than ever somehow.
A simple thing also is breathing. I know I'm a big fan of the 4-7-8 breath, where you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 7, and then you exhale for 8. And if you're experiencing any kind of anxiety, that's so important. Do that a couple of times, and it really does help to recenter you.
Mm-hmm.
I just stop and breathe a lot all throughout the day, because I find, especially as women, we tend to not breathe. We hold our breath. We're like thinking and we're holding our breath, and you don't realize when you do that, your pressure goes up, you get a headache. It's like all these things start happening, and that's what produces the anxiety.
So I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, when I was a preschool teacher, kindergarten, we used to have a thing called stop, drop, and read.
Oh.
And so now I like to say stop, drop, and breathe.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. That's good. That's a good one. I like that a lot.
Stop, drop everything, and breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. And you'll, every single practice that shifts our energy, that goes inside, always starts with your breath.
Yep.
So if the two of us can send all of you watching any one thing, it's stop and breathe.
It's funny. I still use this to this day. We all have certain people in our lives that can trigger us, right? They know how to push that one hot button. And no matter how much work we've done or how enlightened we are or think we are or like to think we are, that trigger is there, and they press that button. And I'm a big fan of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's how I get through it, because I can fly off the handle too. We all can.
Right, 100%. And part of it is learning to see that when you bump into the same triggers, you're not in the same place.
Right.
We've been down and stayed down for a long time, and now often when we get knocked down, we get back up so much more quickly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't you find that
Yes.
Now you get back up more quickly?
Yes, absolutely. Because it's like we've been here before. We know that this is just something we have to go through right now. And even if it's uncomfortable, it's going to lead to something better for us.
Right. And it's very powerful. And I hope that everybody watching, that you're feeling the encouragement that that's you too.
Yes.
To notice your progress, right?
Yes. Instead of focusing on what you feel you're not doing correctly, or if the lack shifted into the silver lining. That's important, especially during times.
Yes, 100%. So share a little bit about what is your free gift, so people can really now take an action and move forward with all this. Oh,
sure. Yeah. It's, I host full moon gatherings once a month for women. And I used to use the meditation off of YouTube. And then one of my clients said to me, why don't you do your own? You have a soothing voice. And I said, that's a good idea. I'm tired of using random people's voices. I'll do it. And so I did. But I wanted to make it quick, because I know when you're first starting to meditate, it's difficult everyone has this idea that it's supposed to be a certain way, and it's difficult to focus. So I thought under 10 minutes might be a great idea, because it's enough to hold their attention to where they actually get into the zone, but they'll feel it through the chakras, through the energy centers. And you'll notice when you're doing it, I promise, you'll notice when you're doing it, you will see the parts of your body that need attention. Like if it's your throat, you need to be speaking your truth, doing something creative. If it's your heart, what are you not dealing with? Are you suffering from trauma? Do you have emotional loss? It's very, very interesting as you go through each energy center, what you feel. And then I would recommend journaling after too, just to write down what it is that you feel.
Okay.
It's free. It's just right. As soon as you go to my website, it pops up.
And they'll have a link. You'll have a link, everybody. You'll click it and it'll be right there once you click.
Yes.
So what I recommend everyone, go get the free gift and do the process, and then jump into the Facebook group for the InStory show, the InStory World Facebook group, and share something. Share a question, an insight, something you wrote from your journal, and we'll get in there and connect. Because, we can, if you have questions, if you pop into the group, we'll all, Lisa will come in, I'll come in, and we'll answer questions so that we can help you to use these tools, not just talk about them.
Yes, exactly.
So, all right, Lisa, before we wrap up, maybe leave us with a few last words of inspiration.
Okay. So what I will say is right now, it's hard to not spiral. Even if you feel like you're good, people around you could be losing it. And that's the hard part. So try to remember, be the light for the other people. Mm-hmm. Say to yourself, what tools have I learned in this past week, month, year, whatever, to help lift this person up? And how do I react? Learning to react and not respond is extremely important, right? Did I say that right? Respond
and not react.
That's what I meant. You know what I meant. I'm a little dyslexic. Respond but not react, because you want to come at all of your interactions from a place of love right now. And thinking, we all have a journey here. We all have a story. And what we see, like on the 3-dimensional level, that is only half of it. We don't know what that person's going through, right? But we know what we're going through. So we can only control this. We can only control ourselves. So making a conscious effort to just be more present in your everyday and aware goes a very long way. Even the yucky stuff, even being aware of the yucky stuff.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I think we have a big ability to ask, what can I give? How can I bring more light and love? So I agree. I think this is, our vision of all the speakers on this show and this community is to do that for each other. So,
and taking quiet time is so important. So I know a lot of us are mothers, and it's hard, but you have to carve that time out. It's so important. You can't keep going and going and going and thinking that, it's going to be, you're not going to eventually burn out, because you will. And so it's more important now than ever, even if it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, just make sure you do that.
I'm 100% with you on that one.
Yeah.
Take that quiet time. Boy, oh boy. Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
So Lisa, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and take that quiet time, trust your intuition, go inside. And as I always say in farewell, remember to go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, folks.
Bye. Bye.